Hey everybody, I wanted to put together this little video demo just to help you as we get more and more into doing our painting. Um, the first couple exercises and stuff for the class have been really kind of like lot more of kind of photo manipulation and things like that. And of course, you've had some painting now with the landscape and stuff. Things like that. But I just want to do this for you, just something to maybe help you with some concepts and ideas, hopefully. You know, take what you can from this. I'll kind of explain things as I do things, but there's going to be times where I'm not talking as well. So anyway, let's just start out. This is just a little sketch that I did, and I spent probably about a half hour between the sketch and some of the little things that I've done that I'm going to show you in a minute. But this is, I just got done reading, or actually listening to the audio tape for Bram Stoker's Dracula. And figured, it's kind of that time right now. It's Halloween time and stuff. And why not do a little Bram Stoker's Dracula? I tried to stay really close to how he was explained within the book, which is not exactly there's not a lot of description, really. He's supposed to be an old guy. He's got pointed ears. He's got a mustache. And so I'm going to kind of just play with some of that and try and stay doing nothing too crazy. Because I think sometimes it's easy to do some wild stuff with vampires. I still want him to look kind of human, just strange, which is kind of how he's explained in the book. And he's got these kind of sharp teeth that point out in the front. I'm going to go through this and show you my process now. So we've got this drawing here, right, on one layer, of course, background layer. And then some things that I did. One thing I always do when I start out painting is I'll have a flat layer. This is just a kind of cut out. I basically just go through and create this layer that's basically the outline of the body, right, of the drawing. And that will allow me to create clipping masks or layer masks so that I can essentially stay within the lines there. And from there, I kind of dumped in a bunch of kind of like just filled in a paint bucketed in a color just to kind of get some ideas of what his skin would be like. Played a little bit with his eyes and hair, and then give him this black. And then, so for kind of his robe or whatever he's wearing, it's never really clear to me in the book what he was wearing. And then I got this kind of background layer, just kind of giving something to hopefully get him within that world. So that kind of gets us something to start with, and I'm going to begin painting from here. Now, probably what I'm going to do, a lot of times, I'm just going to kind of play and see what I want. I assume this is going to be the colors I'm going to use, but I may change things up as we go, or maybe in the end, I don't know. We're just going to play and see what happens. So, let's just start out. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to be painting all beneath the lines, right? I like to have the lines to guide me, and I'll paint eventually over that. I'm going to start out. I'm going to get an airbrush, drop the opacity. And probably what I'm going to do right now is just start roughing in some shadows. Just kind of brushing it all in. We'll see what happens. I want him to look strange, which is how he's kind of described in the comics in the book, but not so strange that you would have to run from him or something, right? Like he's not totally a monster. He's just weird looking. Pale, weird. So we're going to see how I end up approaching this. Keep them pretty dark in here. I'm just trying to get a little idea of what could be going on for his shadows to help guide me understand a little bit. Just color picking with the Alt button. Some areas that I want to add in there. This beginning stage is always difficult because you're not 100% sure where you're going with it, and that can sometimes be a little annoying, but paintings take time. So I've got kind of the shadow layer going here, right? That's helping to refine him. I can look over here at my navigator and kind of get an idea as well. That's helping. We're going to create a layer above it. These are all normal layers right now. It may change as time goes on. I'm going to play here. Play with some of the more highlighted areas, brighter values. Still doing some shadow there though. Nice thing of working in Photoshop with the layers is I can work beneath. I can work beneath the line drawing. I can get those areas that I want to stick out and still not paint over those lines. Because at least right now I'm not interested in painting over the lines. Will eventually, but if I can try and get a lot of my overall kind of values and colors I'm looking for here. Some more of these shadows. I think what we'll do is we'll have a little bit more of some light hitting the side here. Kind of a rim light almost. Give it a little kind of cooler look. But to play with that, I've got these layers so far I'm playing, right, adjusting. Maybe pick something like this. I'm not sure what exactly I want for the side. This kind of light, but I can change it up. We're going to see. It's kind of rim light. So, well, I have maybe kind of like a blue light, perhaps. Interesting. A little bit of a side here. Maybe. One of the fun things you can do is if you don't like this, if you're like, oh, I don't know, or you just want to see, because it's on a separate layer, I can manipulate it. If you go Command U or Control U on a PC, you can bring up the hue saturation layer and you can shift. You can see, what could be some different possibilities. Shift here, maybe I want green more. And I could pick something like, let's say I did do a little more green, but I dropped the saturation a little. Turn off the preview, see what you had before and what you have now. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll keep this. I can change it later. I'll turn this a lot. This is how when I draw even just normal. Possibly. Go back under that layer, do some more painting. Shadow over the eyes here. I'm a fan of vampires, werewolves, and things of that nature, kind of the classic monsters. Always liked them as a kid. Oops. Okay, I like things that are coming there, I guess, for the most part. So that's probably pretty decent. So you can kind of see what's happened since we started. Here, 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 here. And I'm going to select those. Shift, select. Command E will collapse those down into one layer. So that gives me kind of an idea. So I feel like this thing is starting to come together. And I like using that soft brush, airbrush, for getting in those shadows and things like this. This point, for at least right now, I think I'm going to try something a little different brush. I'm going to start doing some paint. Still probably going to stay beneath the lines. So I'm going to paint with a little more textury brush. Something that looks like this. All right. And I'm just going to keep going. Should always try and stay back here. You don't want to get too close paint in the beginning. I have a habit of trying to do that, but you are better off not doing it. Mainly because you can paint faster. And I lied. I'm going to go to a different brush I really like for blending skin. It's kind of a hard, soft brush. It's really nice for blending skin, and I'm going to use this to continue to guide me. Constantly using the Alt button to color pick, blend. If you haven't realized that already, that's really the key to blending in Photoshop. Talked about it a little bit, and I think when I was doing that skill assessment test and I sent that to you. You have to excuse me. We have some people going by doing landscaping work outside. I live in an apartment complex, and apparently today is the day that they're doing that. So I apologize, but it is what it is. Again, you don't have to use the brush I'm using. I like it. It's what I use. Basically a brush that one of my favorite artists uses for a lot of his paintings, at least to get the beginning stuff in before adding some texture. And that's oftentimes how I add texture. I'll come in and blend everything and get things the way I want, kind of nice with these softer brushes, and I'll come in later and get my texture. Since Photoshop paintings, digital paintings suffer from being too smooth, right? Because we're not painting on paper or canvas or anything. So it takes a little bit of trying to finagle to get what you want, to get that look. It's a little more texturing. And we'll talk about that more later. Just kind of looking. Okay, let's see the progress we've made so far. Of course, that was before. This is now what I've just been doing right here. Start painting above the lines pretty soon. All right, so I'm going to bring that down where we are. Saving it, Command Save, Command S, Control S on the PC. So now we're going to start painting above the lines, right? The beginnings are starting to come there, and now I want to paint above that. First thing I'm going to do, though, generally, you don't have to, but I like giving a little color to these lines here. So I've created a clipping mask, right? A layer mask, whatever you want to call it, clipping mask with by holding down Alt. Talked about this before in the the skill assessment test when I did that to show you guys. I'm going to put this through here. Now this, of course, is not, I don't want it to be red like that, but I paint bucketed in that. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop the opacity, maybe 30%, 33%, somewhere around there. And that will just give me a little something so the lines are not black. It's a little easier to paint over, it's my opinion. Anyway, now let's start painting. I'm going to use actually this brush, I think, for right now to paint with. It's kind of a nice textury look you can kind of see there. And see, oh, come on. There we go. All right, let's see what happens here. Probably going to start out with his eyes. Always like the eyes. I'm going to zoom in a little bit on that. I can always have my little piece here. Sometimes I need to get something just going. I think I said that before. Maybe not, but sometimes I feel like you gotta get a little something rolling on your painting, making it look kind of feel complete. At least I do. Then it makes it easier for me to continue. You may hear my dogs in the background sighing or drinking water. My one was going at the water pretty intensely when I started out here, so you might have heard that already. Something I like in his eyes about being this kind of almost tired look. So it's pretty, you can see here that I'm kind of just painting over things, right? I'm just painting over these, I'm using the lines to become part of the painting, and I'm just painting over it, right? Also, you're going to notice a lot, I'm going to pick up my smudge tool. I have all layers, sample all layers, so I can smudge layers beneath it. And that's also going to be a way sometimes that I'm going to get blending that I want. It's very similar to a blending stub. If you use blending stubs ever with pencils, that's what I liken it to, and that's why I like it. Depending on what kind of drawings I'm doing, I'll use a blending stub. If I'm trying to go a little more realistic, get a little more value shading in there. Try and get that form. So starting to feel like we're getting something going there. Oh, sorry, I live by the train tracks, so you're getting to hear that. You may hear it again. Sorry. No soundproof studio here. So what I'm going to do there, yeah, I'm just trying to get some highlight. To me, the eyes are very important. I'm sure you guys have thought about that kind of stuff before too. If you can sell the eyes, it really helps. And to me, it helps just to get a character to look good. I'm feeling that helps make the eye a little better. I collapse that down with the other layer that I just painted, so that kind of tells where we're at right now. It's good to look at that as kind of like, oh, this is how far I've made it in the painting. I'm going to continue to keep painting here. Go back a little. It's hard. I always want to get in there. Always notice that little color picker coming up there. That is just me blending, color picking, blending. You have to kind of force yourself to do it in the beginning, but I've been doing this now for just almost 9 years, which is crazy to say. And it becomes intuitive after a while. Not always, but a lot of times this part is more mechanical to me, where I can kind of shut my brain off and just paint. It's more when you're, and this is not a really complicated drawing by any means, but it's more when you're coming up with compositions and drawings and gesture. trying to get proportions right and all those type of things. That's where it takes the real thinking, in my opinion. Once you get here, this is something more where it's just blending and I'm not thinking about as much stuff. So it's a little easier in my opinion. But I've been doing it longer than you guys, so you might find this still to be a real struggling part, and that's okay. I'm not saying it's easy for me. Believe me, I still struggle. But I'm just saying that the real hard part in my mind is when you're doing all the design work in the beginning. This stuff becomes a little more, you can sit back and relax. And if I wasn't talking to you, I'd probably be listening to some music right now, or a podcast, an audiobook. I don't usually listen to anything when I'm doing the drawing phase, because I feel like I need all my brain power, my brain processing power to focus in on, I need that to focus in on, basically what I'm doing. This, I've just shifted this a little bit. I have a hotkey that flips the canvas. You can do it by image rotation, flip canvas horizontal. And I'm just doing this it's good sometimes to paint from a different, basically paint the reverse side, see maybe mistakes you're making, things like that. I have a habit of slanting things a little bit to one side, which is not necessarily the end of the world because, no one's face is perfectly symmetrical, but this is a good way for me to check, just make sure things aren't getting too goofy. Maybe they are, I don't know. Anyway, gonna keep painting. Work on this side a little bit. Now you don't have to do what I'm about to do, but a lot of times you want to speed up the process. Steal what you have, a little bit of that eye. Command Z, V. Get a little bit of that painting that's already there. And then just paint over it. Save you just a little time. Don't have to do it. Sometimes though, when you're trying to save time, any little hints like that help. I am going to flip back real quick. Continue my painting. Continue to work on that eye just right. Smudge a little bit here. You kind of see what I've painted so far. Kind of looking beneath here and trying to see, maybe I want to get a little bit more of that folded look on the eye. Kind of missing that as I was painting over it. Switch back to this one brush for blending. Probably end up coloring some of those, painting over some of those wrinkles, but I'll try and bring them back through the process later. Blending to get those folds. Sorry, just stretching there. Still trying to wake up this morning. I've never been much of an early morning person, and even though I get up early every day, still takes me a while to really wake up. Don't mind that, it's just my cell phone going off. Assuming you can hear it. take a look and see where we're at. Things always shift a little bit when you're painting above or over lines, but that's okay. I'm not 100% sure if he's going to have eyebrows or not. We'll see. That blending stub, or that smudge tool, really. Again, but I almost think of it as a blending stub. Save to. You can tell I'm just picking a lot of the colors that are already kind of within my painting for the most part. I'll sometimes adjust a little bit up here. I'm a big fan of the HSB color picker. Well, you can certainly pick your colors within this range here too. There's other ways, but I like this. A little smudge here. Using that smudge tool again. You can see the difference from our painting. Things are changing, or from our drawing to our painting. That's always going to happen. I personally never stick too close to my line art. I am all about using it as a guide and letting the creative process happen kind of organically. check my values. I have a black and white adjustment layer to kind of see how things are looking. Now, depending on how we did this, I could get super, super detailed and render this out. I'm probably not going to go crazy on it, because I could spend 6, 7, who knows, hours, 15, just going crazy. And I'm probably not going to do that. You'll be able to get a gist of, if you wanted to go further, you could, but if not, this will help you, hopefully on some level, just seeing the process and how to approach this. Just had an idea. I don't know if I'm going to do it or not, but it might be kind of fun to paint over his eyes a little bit, give him this weird glassy look. Maybe. I might keep it. Kind of like it. It's kind of interesting. Maybe it's covered over with for his bloodlust or whatever. I don't know. Maybe I'll change it in the end. I can't tell you. See how this thing progresses. Again, if there was, this is just kind of a painting demo with a slight bit of, I guess you could say, character design. But I'm kind of just jumping in with him. Maybe if I had a lot more time, I could really explore what he would look like. Maybe come up with an even more unique design. But that's not so important to this lesson. Again, I wanted to just kind of stay within the bounds of the original book. And he's not particularly, well, it's not particularly informative of what he looks like, but he's just not, there's nothing that amazingly cool, in my opinion, about how he's described in the book. The real question is how old to make him look. At least right now, that's what I'm thinking. I mean, he's got to look old, but how old? Could he be in his 60s? Could he be in his 70s? Is he real decrepit? A lot of possibilities here. Fortunately, guys, not too much commentary here. Obviously, I'm doing this by myself and taping this for you, but just a lot of blending. To me, that's the real work, like I said, of the painting. Blend, blend, blend. Okay, at this point, start moving a little bit more into a textured brush. Grab this one. Let's see about playing with some of these wrinkles, what I'm going to do. These find wrinkles to be a little difficult. I'm going to grab a little bit more of a textured brush here. And this is something, as always, depending on how much texture you want to get into a piece. You can paint with a brush like this all the time, or come in like I'm doing now and add areas, texture. Depends how painterly you want it, what you're wanting to achieve. No right or wrong way. You can see though it gets some nice texture. It's funny in some ways. I don't even know. He almost reminds me of Anthony Hopkins a little bit. Not exactly sure. Just seeing that in my head. But that's fine. I don't care if he does. Maybe something about the eyes. I'm going to switch to a different brush. It's like this. So that hair to stick out there, especially if you get in here, hit the edges, and get that kind of highlight, rim light. I almost feel like I see Christopher Walken. Apparently I'm seeing a lot of famous people in here. I don't know what I'm seeing. I am going to save this. Try and save every hour or thereabouts. Oh, actually, accidentally must have done a different key. Anyway, I try and save every hour or thereabouts. Probably a little longer here, but just in case something goes wrong, your files can get corrupted. Not always. I mean, it rarely happens to me, but I've seen it happen to students, and it's happened to me before. So your best bet is to try and avoid that. Of course, I think the best way to avoid that is by saving every hour or so. That way, if you did lose, let's say, an hour of work, it's just an hour. And yeah, an hour is an hour and it's annoying, but it's way better than losing 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours, which I have seen from students who have just continually saved the same thing over and over. So you want to be wise and not do that. And it's okay if it happens to you because you don't always know these things. But That's what I'm trying to tell you here, so hopefully you remember. Let me turn off the lines real quick. Now you can see actually that if I turn off the lines, I painted so much that like you almost don't need them anymore. But they are still part of the painting. They will show through in certain areas. So again, this is kind of where we were, where we are. Paint those teeth a little bit. Getting up close like this, you can see the brush strokes a little more. You can see it's not maybe as refined as it looks from a distance. And depending on what, you know, your style, what you're trying to achieve, you know, this could be just fine. The only thing that's going to really need, you know, to do more, the only reason you would need to do more is if you wanted to do some really highly rendered piece, or maybe you want to make it photographic. It depends too, you know, if you're working for a client, what are their needs? You know, maybe this is going to not print out really big, so you know, you don't need to be painting it super tight or photorealistic or whatever. Play a little bit more with some wrinkles. I think that's a little better. He's got some wrinkles in his face. I think that'll do. Again, like I said, you know, we could really refine this, but I don't think it needs to be that refined. I want to show you some. I think in a lot of ways I'm getting to where I need to be. Still got a little bit more to go. I'm going to add some highlights here. Sometimes these last little bits of highlights can really help to sell a picture, make it feel a little more realistic. All right, so I think that's pretty good. Those highlights there help. So what I want to do now, I think, is I'm going to show you some things that you can do. So we've got him here. I'm actually going to save out another one. Oh yeah. I'm going to save out another version of this just to be safe. Kind of document the process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get all my layers now combined down to one, right? So we have all the stuff from when we, you know, that we've kind of kept from the beginning, right? From the original thing to adding the basic kind of colors to our basic shading, coloring our lines right here, and then the paint of it, right? So what I'd like to do now is combine that all into one thing. So now it's one layer, okay? I'm gonna actually make the background one layer as well. Now, it's a good idea, in my opinion, to always keep things separate, right? So you should keep separate and have a background layer, and then you should have your painted layer separately. Especially, this is maybe not as important if you're doing something personal for yourself, but for a client, you know, what would happen is if this was bound to the background, if this layer was stuck here and just, you know, if your art director or whatever said, hey, you know, I like it, but we need to move him over, you know, a couple inches over here, boy, you're in trouble if it's cut there. It's gonna take a little more work than you need to do. So I really suggest keeping it separate, you know, so that way if they just need to nudge it up a little or here or there or wherever, you know what I mean, you've got it. So keep the files separate, the layers separate, I should say. Now from here, what I want to do is start doing a little more refinement of some things. So one thing I want to show you, you hold Command and then you click on something, you'll get that selection, that area. I'm going to go Command H just so we don't see it, but if you turn it on again, it's still selected. We're going to be able to stay within those lines, kind of like the layer mask. And what I'm going to do here is with a brush, I'm going to add just some. I'm going to do some more textury stuff just to help with this. One thing I love to use is this kind of spattery brush. And turn on the transfer so I have control about how thick it comes on. And I like to do this with an overlay layer that will give me some. It won't destroy what's underneath it, but it'll allow me to get some texture in it. You know, I can still achieve a little more texture, a little more feel. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to probably like this, and I'm going to go over and just start splattering paint on it.